Have you ever wondered what happens in the minds of others when you decide to step back and simply disappear? Silence is a powerful tool, one often underestimated. It's not just about removing yourself physically, it's about creating a space that forces people to confront their own thoughts and emotions. In today's video, we dive deep into 11 things people feel when you simply disappear, drawing wisdom from Stoicism and human psychology. When you step away, you're not just leaving behind the noise, you're leaving behind a part of yourself that they once depended on, consciously or unconsciously. People begin to experience a whirlwind of emotions, confusion, regret, guilt, and even realization. This absence creates a ripple effect, making them reflect on their actions and the role you played in their lives. It's in these quiet moments that they often see your true value. Stoicism teaches us the power of control over our actions, our emotions, and the way we respond to situations. By choosing to disappear, you're exercising control over your narrative. You're showing strength in restraint and the ability to prioritize your peace. This act often leaves a lasting impact, as it highlights something many people ignore: the importance of respect, boundaries, and self-worth. In this video, we'll unpack the psychology behind what others feel when you disappear and how these reactions align with timeless Stoic principles. We'll explore everything from their initial shock and confusion to the deeper realizations that emerge when they're left to sit with your absence. This isn't just about understanding their emotions. It's about learning how silence and distance can work as tools for personal growth and self-respect. So whether you're navigating a challenging relationship or just curious about human behavior, this video will provide insights to help you move forward with wisdom and confidence. Number 1. Shock and confusion. When someone disappears suddenly, the initial reaction is often one of profound shock and confusion. This reaction stems from the abrupt nature of the change, which disrupts the natural flow of expectations and interactions that people take for granted. Humans are creatures of habit, relying heavily on routines, predictability, and the presence of others to create a sense of stability in their lives. When someone who was once a consistent part of their day or emotional space vanishes without explanation, it creates a vacuum, a gap that demands to be filled with answers. The mind, unable to process this absence logically or emotionally in the moment, goes into overdrive. This sudden disruption triggers a cascade of questions. What happened? Why did they leave? Did I do something wrong? Are they okay? These unanswered questions swirl around, pulling the person into a state of mental chaos as they try to reconcile the new reality with their previous expectations. The confusion is compounded by the lack of closure or understanding. In the absence of a clear explanation, the mind often turns inward, seeking clues or reasons within past interactions to explain the sudden disappearance. Memories are replayed like a movie, dissected frame by frame, in search of anything that could provide clarity. Words, gestures, and moments that may have seemed insignificant at the time are magnified and analyzed, often leading to overthinking and self-doubt. This introspection can become exhausting as the person begins to second-guess their own actions and behaviors. Did they say something offensive? Did they fail to meet expectations? The lack of communication creates a void where assumptions and fears thrive, leading to an overwhelming sense of uncertainty. This uncertainty, in turn, feeds into the shock. The abrupt absence of someone who played a role, whether big or small, in their life, disrupts their emotional equilibrium. Relationships, even casual ones, have a rhythm, and when that rhythm is broken, it can feel like an unexpected jolt. It's akin to losing a piece of a puzzle where the picture remains incomplete, leaving a lingering sense of dissatisfaction and unease. The shock can also trigger physical reactions as the brain perceives the loss as a potential threat. Increased heart rate, restlessness, and even difficulty sleeping are common symptoms as the body and mind struggle to adjust to the new reality. This physiological response underscores how deeply humans are wired to value connection and how much an unexpected loss can affect them. Adding to this is the emotional vulnerability that arises from the shock. For many, the sudden disappearance of someone important can feel like a betrayal, even if the reasons are unknown. This sense of betrayal can intensify the confusion as they grapple with conflicting emotions. On one hand, there may be anger or frustration toward the person who disappeared, especially if they left without explanation or warning. On the other hand, there may be sadness or longing as the individual mourns the loss of the connection and the comfort it brought. This duality of emotions often creates an inner turmoil that is difficult to navigate, especially when there is no resolution in sight. Shock and confusion are not linear experiences, they ebb and flow, often catching people off guard at the most unexpected moments. A random memory, a song, or even a passing conversation can bring back a flood of emotions, reigniting the sense of disbelief and disorientation. The mind, still seeking answers, struggles to move forward as it clings to the hope of understanding what went wrong. This hope, while natural, can also be a source of frustration, as it keeps the person tethered to the past, unable to fully accept the present. It's a delicate balance between wanting closure and needing to let go, a balance that many find difficult to achieve in the midst of emotional turmoil. The confusion is often exacerbated by the social implications of the disappearance. When someone vanishes from a shared social circle or community, it can lead to awkward conversations and speculation. Friends, colleagues, or acquaintances may ask questions, inadvertently adding to the person's confusion and emotional strain. This external pressure can make it even harder to process the situation, as they feel compelled to provide answers that they themselves do not have. The social dynamic shifts, as the disappearance creates a ripple effect that touches not just the person directly affected, but also those around them. This collective uncertainty can amplify the emotional impact, making it harder for the individual to find a sense of stability or peace. Despite the overwhelming nature of shock and confusion, these emotions also serve a purpose. They are a natural part of the human response to change and loss, signaling that something significant has occurred. While painful, they also provide an opportunity for growth and self-reflection. In the midst of the chaos, there is a chance to re-evaluate priorities, boundaries, and expectations in relationships. The absence of someone who disappeared can highlight the areas in one's life that need attention, whether it's fostering self-worth, building resilience, or learning to set healthier boundaries. This process is not easy, and it often requires time and support, but it is a crucial step in moving forward. The journey from shock and confusion to acceptance and understanding is not linear. It involves setbacks, moments of clarity, and times of doubt. There will be days when the questions feel overwhelming and days when the answers seem irrelevant. Through it all, the key is to remain patient and compassionate with oneself. It's important to acknowledge the pain and confusion without letting them define the narrative. The disappearance of someone from one's life, while impactful, does not have to dictate the course of one's future. Instead, it can serve as a reminder of the resilience and strength that lie within, even in the face of uncertainty. In the end, shock and confusion are universal experiences that connect us as humans. They are a testament to the value we place on relationships and the impact that others have on our lives. While they may feel overwhelming in the moment, they also hold the potential for growth, understanding, and ultimately healing. By embracing the process and allowing oneself to feel, question, and reflect, it becomes possible to move beyond the initial shock and confusion, emerging stronger and more self-aware. The journey is not easy, but it is one that leads to a deeper understanding of oneself and the world around them, transforming pain into a source of strength and resilience. Number 2. They start missing your presence when you disappear from someone's life. They inevitably begin to notice the void left behind, and this absence makes them start missing your presence in ways they may not have anticipated. Human connections, whether deep or surface level, create a subtle yet profound influence on the emotional state of individuals. Your presence was likely woven into the fabric of their daily life, whether through direct interactions, shared experiences, or the quiet comfort of knowing you were accessible. When you step away, the gap becomes glaringly obvious, often in the most mundane moments. They might find themselves reaching for their phone to share a thought or an idea, only to realize you're no longer there to receive it. This sudden shift forces them to confront how much they relied on you, not just for support or conversation, but for a sense of emotional stability that they may have taken for granted. The absence amplifies their awareness of your value, as they begin to connect the dots between your presence and the balance it brought to their lives. The process of missing someone isn't always immediate. It often creeps in slowly, like a shadow that grows larger as time passes. Initially, they might try to brush off your absence, convincing themselves that it doesn't affect them or that life goes on as usual. However, as days turn into weeks, the small reminders of you become harder to ignore. A song you both enjoyed, a place you frequented, or even phrases you commonly used in conversation can trigger an overwhelming sense of loss. These triggers act as constant reminders of your presence, making it nearly impossible for them to move forward without acknowledging the void. They may even find themselves revisiting memories of you, replaying moments in their mind in an attempt to hold on to the connection they now realize they miss. This longing isn't just about the absence of your physical presence, but the emotional and intellectual presence you offered, your unique perspective, your way of listening, and the energy you brought into their life. As they miss your presence, they begin to experience a range of emotions that often conflict with one another. Nostalgia floods their thoughts, painting past moments with a golden hue that makes them seem even more special than they may have felt at the time. This rose-colored view of the past can be both comforting and painful as they grapple with the realization that those moments are now out of reach. Alongside nostalgia, there's often regret. Regret for the things left unsaid, the opportunities missed, or the ways they may have contributed to your decision to step away. This regret can weigh heavily, creating a sense of emotional turbulence that they struggle to resolve. They may wish they had expressed more gratitude for your presence, or that they had recognized your importance sooner, before your absence made it so painfully clear. The act of missing someone is deeply tied to human nature. People are wired to seek connection, and when that connection is severed, it creates a sense of incompleteness. Your presence was likely a source of emotional nourishment for them, providing reassurance, comfort, or even a sense of identity. Without you, they may feel untethered, as though a part of their world has shifted out of balance. This emotional disruption can lead them to reflect on the role you played in their life and the ways in which your absence has changed their perspective. It's often said that people don't realize what they have until it's gone, and this rings especially true in cases where someone disappears without warning. The sudden lack of access to you, whether it was your humor, your support, or simply your company, magnifies your significance, making them acutely aware of how much they valued having you around. In some cases, missing your presence can manifest as a sense of longing that feels almost physical. They might experience moments of restlessness, as if their body is searching for something it can't quite identify, This longing often leads to an increased focus on the past, as they attempt to hold on to the memories and experiences that keep you alive in their mind. They may scroll through old messages, revisit places you used to go together, or even seek out mutual friends to talk about you, all in an effort to fill the void. However, these actions often have the opposite effect, intensifying their sense of loss rather than alleviating it. The realization that you are no longer a part of their life in the same way can be a difficult pill to swallow, leaving them grappling with emotions they may not know how to handle. The absence of your presence also forces them to confront their own behavior and choices. They may start questioning whether they played a role in your disappearance, and if so, what they could have done differently. This self-reflection can be uncomfortable, but also transformative, as it pushes them to acknowledge the impact of their actions or lack thereof on the relationship. If they recognize that they took you for granted or failed to appreciate you fully, this realization can be a source of deep regret. On the other hand, if they believe your departure was unwarranted or unfair, they may struggle with feelings of resentment or confusion. Regardless of the circumstances, the process of missing you forces them to examine the dynamics of the relationship and their own emotional responses. Over time, missing your presence may lead them to take action, whether it's reaching out to reconnect or finding ways to cope with the loss. The decision to reach out is often fraught with hesitation, as they weigh the risks of vulnerability against the desire to mend the connection. If they choose not to reach out, they may attempt to fill the void with other people or distractions, though these substitutes rarely provide the same level of fulfillment. Your absence is unique, and no one else can truly replace the space you once occupied in their life. This realization can be both humbling and painful, as it underscores the depth of the bond you shared and the irreplaceable nature of your presence. As they navigate the process of missing you, they may also begin to grow in ways they hadn't anticipated. The pain of your absence can serve as a catalyst for self-discovery and growth, pushing them to confront their own shortcomings and develop a greater appreciation for the relationships in their life. They may come to understand the importance of valuing people while they're still present, rather than waiting until it's too late. This growth doesn't erase the pain of missing you, but it adds a layer of meaning to the experience, transforming it into an opportunity for reflection and improvement. Ultimately, missing your presence is a deeply human experience, one that touches on the universal themes of love, loss, and connection. It's a testament to the impact you had on their life and the ways in which your presence enriched their world. While the pain of missing you can be overwhelming, it also serves as a reminder of the depth of the bond you shared and the value of meaningful connections. In your absence, they are left to confront the truth of their own emotions, their own actions, and the ways in which they relate to others. It's a process that is as challenging as it is transformative, offering the potential for growth, understanding, and ultimately healing. Number 3. Self-doubt creeps in. When someone disappears from your life, especially without explanation, it often leaves you grappling with an unsettling wave of self-doubt that slowly but surely begins to creep in. This self-doubt doesn't arrive all at once. Instead, it trickles into your thoughts, subtly yet powerfully undermining your confidence and sense of self. At first, you might brush it off, attributing their absence to external factors unrelated to you. But as time passes and the silence stretches on, the questions begin to grow louder. Was it something I said? Was it something I did? Was I not good enough for them to stay? These thoughts loop in your mind, creating a mental spiral that is difficult to escape. Every interaction, every word exchanged, and every moment shared is dissected in minute detail, as if the answer to their departure lies hidden in some forgotten nuance. This over-analysis can become exhausting, as your mind relentlessly searches for clues, often magnifying small flaws or mistakes into significant reasons for their absence. The result is a gradual erosion of self-assurance, as you start to believe that you, in some way, were the problem. The insidious nature of self-doubt is that it not only questions your actions, but also challenges your worth. It whispers cruel suggestions that perhaps you weren't interesting enough, attractive enough, or important enough to be worth their time or attention. Even if you've been confident and secure in your identity, the sudden void left by their absence can feel like a rejection, and rejection has a way of cutting deeper than logic can explain. This perceived rejection doesn't just hurt. It plants seeds of insecurity that can take root and grow into a pervasive sense of inadequacy. You might start to view yourself through a harsher lens, focusing on imperfections that were never an issue before. Your strengths and achievements can feel diminished as your inner critic grows louder, fueled by the unanswered questions surrounding their disappearance. What makes self-doubt particularly destructive is how it colors your perception of other relationships and interactions. If one person could leave without a word, who's to say others won't do the same? This thought can lead to a reluctance to open up or trust others fully as you begin to anticipate the possibility of further rejection. It becomes harder to believe in the authenticity of connections as your mind questions whether people genuinely value you or if they're simply tolerating your presence out of politeness or convenience. This skepticism creates an emotional barrier, making it difficult to foster meaningful connections or maintain the ones you already have. Ironically, the fear of being left again can lead you to withdraw, reinforcing the very isolation that triggered your self-doubt in the first place. The creeping nature of self-doubt also has a way of distorting reality, making it hard to see the situation objectively. You may blame yourself for their disappearance without considering external factors that could have influenced their decision. Perhaps they were dealing with personal issues, circumstances beyond their control, or even their own insecurities. But self-doubt doesn't allow for such balanced reasoning. Instead, it narrows your focus to your perceived shortcomings, ignoring the complexities of human relationships. This one-sided narrative can be particularly damaging as it perpetuates a cycle of negative self-talk that further entrenches your feelings of unworthiness. As self-doubt continues to take hold, it can start to affect not only your emotional well-being, but also your behavior and decision-making. You might find yourself second-guessing your choices, overthinking even the simplest interactions, and hesitating to assert yourself out of fear of saying or doing the wrong thing. This hesitation can make you appear less confident, which in turn can affect how others perceive and interact with you, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more you doubt yourself, the more you act in ways that reinforce those doubts, perpetuating a cycle that becomes increasingly difficult to break. One of the most challenging aspects of self-doubt is its ability to linger long after the initial trigger. Even if you eventually come to terms with their disappearance or realize that it wasn't your fault, the self-doubt that took root during that time can remain, subtly influencing your thoughts and actions. It becomes a shadow that follows you, whispering doubts and insecurities in moments when you should feel confident and secure. Over time, this lingering self-doubt can impact your sense of identity, making you question who you are and whether you're truly deserving of love, respect, and belonging. However, it's important to recognize that self-doubt, while painful, is also a natural response to situations of uncertainty and rejection. It reflects your desire for connection, understanding, and self-improvement, even if it manifests in ways that feel overwhelming or disheartening. The key is to acknowledge these feelings without allowing them to define you. It's easy to get lost in the spiral of self-doubt, but it's equally important to challenge the assumptions and beliefs that fuel it. Remind yourself that their disappearance is not a reflection of your worth or value as a person. People leave for a multitude of reasons, many of which have nothing to do with you, and it's unfair to place the entire burden of their decision on your shoulders. Rebuilding your confidence and overcoming self-doubt requires patience, self-compassion, and a willingness to reframe your perspective. Instead of focusing on what you may have done wrong, shift your attention to what you've learned from the experience and how you can grow from it. Use the absence as an opportunity to strengthen your sense of self-worth, independent of external validation. Surround yourself with people who appreciate and value you for who you are, and seek out experiences that reinforce your strengths and passions. The journey to reclaiming your confidence won't happen overnight, but every step you take toward self-acceptance is a step away from the grip of self-doubt. In the end, self-doubt is a universal experience that many people face at some point in their lives. It's a reminder of our vulnerability and humanity, as well as our capacity for growth and resilience. While it may feel like a heavy burden in the moment, it also holds the potential to teach us valuable lessons about ourselves and our relationships. By facing your self-doubt head-on and challenging the negative beliefs it creates, you can emerge stronger, more self-assured, and better equipped to navigate the complexities of human connection. Number 4. Regret and reflection. When someone chooses to disappear from your life, it often triggers a cascade of emotions that revolve around regret and reflection, blending into a complex emotional journey that lingers far longer than expected. Regret doesn't always arrive immediately. It emerges as a gradual awareness of missed opportunities, unspoken words, and actions left undone. The mind becomes consumed by a relentless replay of past moments, scrutinizing them for anything that could have been done differently to prevent the outcome. This endless introspection can feel like walking through a maze of what-ifs, where every path leads back to the same aching conclusion: they are no longer here. You may find yourself questioning whether you valued their presence enough, whether you showed them the appreciation they deserved, or whether you inadvertently pushed them away through neglect or thoughtlessness. This sense of regret becomes all-encompassing, not only because of their absence, but because it forces you to confront aspects of your own behavior and choices that you might otherwise have ignored. The weight of these realizations can feel unbearable at times, as you grapple with the possibility that your actions, or lack thereof, contributed to the loss of someone you cared deeply about. Reflection, on the other hand, operates as both a mirror and a magnifying glass, compelling you to examine not only the relationship, but also yourself. It's a process that strips away the distractions of daily life and leaves you face to face with the raw truth of your emotions and actions. You begin to analyze the dynamics of the connection, questioning whether it was as strong as you believed, or whether there were cracks in its foundation that you chose to overlook. Every interaction is revisited, not just to understand what went wrong, but to uncover the lessons hidden within the pain. Reflection often leads to uncomfortable truths, revealing patterns of behavior that may have been destructive or unsustainable. Perhaps you took them for granted, assuming they would always be there, or perhaps you failed to communicate your feelings openly, leaving room for misunderstandings and unspoken resentment. These insights are rarely easy to confront, but they are necessary for growth, as they offer a roadmap for how to navigate relationships more mindfully in the future. Regret, in many ways, is the emotional price we pay for reflection, as it forces us to acknowledge the moments where we fell short of our own expectations. It's not just about what we did or didn't do, it's also about the potential that was lost when the relationship ended. You might mourn the future you envisioned with them, the plans that will never come to fruition, and the experiences you'll never share. This sense of loss extends beyond their physical absence, touching every aspect of your connection and the life you imagined together. Regret has a way of amplifying the significance of these missed opportunities, making them feel larger than life and impossible to reconcile. At the same time, reflection can offer a sense of closure, as it allows you to process these feelings in a way that feels constructive rather than purely emotional. It encourages you to see the situation from multiple perspectives, considering not just your own feelings, but also theirs, and what might have driven them to leave in the first place. Through this process, you may come to realize that regret is not always a sign of failure, but rather an indicator of how much you cared. If you didn't value the relationship, you wouldn't feel the sting of its loss so deeply. This realization can be both comforting and challenging, as it underscores the importance of the connection while also highlighting the ways in which it fell short. It's in this delicate balance between regret and reflection that growth begins to take root, as you start to understand not only what you could have done differently, but also what you want to prioritize moving forward. The pain of regret can serve as a powerful motivator, pushing you to be more present, more intentional, and more appreciative of the people in your life. At the same time, reflection helps you to see the bigger picture, reminding you that relationships are rarely perfect and that everyone makes mistakes, including the person who chose to leave. One of the most profound aspects of regret and reflection is the way they force you to confront your own vulnerability. It's not just about the loss of the other person, but also about the loss of the version of yourself that existed within that relationship. You may find yourself questioning whether you'll ever be able to build a connection like that again, or whether you're even capable of sustaining meaningful relationships at all. These doubts can feel overwhelming, but they also present an opportunity to rebuild your sense of self in a way that feels more authentic and resilient. By reflecting on what you've learned, you can begin to let go of the guilt and self-blame that often accompany regret, recognizing that relationships are a two-way street and that not everything is within your control. This sense of acceptance doesn't erase the pain, but it does provide a framework for moving forward, allowing you to carry the lessons of the past without being weighed down by them. As time goes on, the intensity of regret may begin to fade, but its impact remains, shaping the way you approach future relationships and interactions. Reflection becomes a tool for self-improvement, guiding you toward a deeper understanding of your own needs and boundaries. You might find yourself becoming more mindful of how you communicate, more willing to express your emotions, and more attuned to the dynamics of your relationships. These changes are not just about preventing future regret, but also about honoring the connection you lost by using it as a catalyst for growth. In this way, regret and reflection are not just painful experiences, but transformative ones, offering you the chance to become a better version of yourself. Ultimately, the process of navigating regret and reflection is deeply personal, shaped by the unique circumstances of your relationship and the emotions it evoked. There is no right or wrong way to experience these feelings, as they are a natural response to loss and change. What matters most is how you choose to engage with them, whether you allow them to consume you or use them as a stepping stone toward greater self-awareness and understanding. It's a journey that requires patience, compassion, and a willingness to face the uncomfortable truths that lie beneath the surface. But through this journey, you can find a sense of clarity and purpose that allows you to move forward with greater confidence and resilience, carrying the lessons of the past into a future that feels brighter and more fulfilling. Number 5. They feel replaced. When someone feels replaced, it often triggers a profound and deeply personal emotional response, as it touches on some of the most vulnerable aspects of human nature: the need for belonging, significance, and connection. This feeling of being replaced is not just about the physical presence of someone else taking your place, but also the symbolic idea that your value or importance has been diminished. It strikes at the core of your self-worth, making you question whether you ever truly mattered or if your role in their life was as meaningful as you believed. The realization, or even the perception, that someone else has taken your place can create a painful sense of inadequacy and irrelevance, leaving you grappling with emotions that are as confusing as they are overwhelming. You may find yourself replaying past interactions, searching for signs that you were being edged out or that someone else was already occupying the space you thought was yours. This relentless overanalysis only intensifies the emotional impact, as you convince yourself that you somehow failed to meet their expectations or that your presence was never enough to hold their attention or loyalty. The feeling of being replaced also brings with it a sense of loss that extends beyond the relationship itself. It's not just about losing the person, but also about losing the identity and role you held in their life. Whether you were a friend, partner, confidant, or colleague, that role carried a sense of purpose and validation that now feels stripped away. This loss can leave you feeling unmoored, as if a part of your identity has been taken from you. The absence of that role creates a void that is difficult to fill, as it was tied to a unique connection that cannot be easily replicated. This void is further deepened by the knowledge that someone else has stepped into that space, seemingly with ease, reinforcing the painful idea that you are replaceable. It's a feeling that can make you question your own uniqueness and whether the qualities that once made you special are still meaningful in a world where relationships can change so quickly and without warning. One of the most challenging aspects of feeling replaced is the comparison that inevitably follows. You find yourself scrutinizing the person who has taken your place, measuring their qualities against your own in an attempt to understand why they were chosen over you. This comparison is rarely objective or fair, as it is colored by the pain and insecurity you're experiencing. Every perceived strength or advantage they possess becomes a glaring reminder of your own supposed shortcomings, feeding a narrative that you were not good enough. This constant comparison not only damages your self-esteem, but also creates a sense of resentment and bitterness that can be difficult to overcome. You may begin to view their presence as a threat, even if their intentions were never to hurt or displace you. This perspective only amplifies your feelings of isolation and inadequacy, as it reinforces the belief that you have been excluded from something that was once yours. The emotional toll of feeling replaced doesn't just affect your relationship with the person who left, but also spills over into other areas of your life. It can make you more guarded and less trusting, as you become wary of forming new connections or investing in existing ones out of fear that you will be replaced again. This fear can lead to a sense of detachment, as you protect yourself from potential hurt by keeping others at arm's length. While this strategy may provide a temporary sense of security, it also prevents you from experiencing the depth and richness of human connection, leaving you feeling even more isolated and alone. The irony is that the very act of protecting yourself from being replaced again can create a self-fulfilling prophecy, as your reluctance to fully engage with others may lead to the kind of distance and disconnection you're trying to avoid. At the same time, feeling replaced can also spark a sense of anger and frustration, both toward the person who left and the one who took your place. This anger is often a reflection of the deeper hurt you feel, as it provides a way to externalize your pain and make sense of a situation that feels unfair and inexplicable. You may find yourself blaming them for your feelings of inadequacy, even though those emotions are rooted in your own insecurities and perceptions. This anger can be difficult to process, as it is often accompanied by a sense of powerlessness. You cannot change the fact that they have moved on or undo the circumstances that led to their decision, leaving you with unresolved emotions that have no clear outlet. Despite the pain and complexity of feeling replaced, it also offers an opportunity for growth and self-discovery. It forces you to confront the parts of yourself that derive validation and worth from external relationships, challenging you to find a deeper sense of self-worth that is not dependent on others. This process is neither quick nor easy, as it requires you to untangle the narratives you've built around your identity and value. It may involve revisiting painful memories, challenging ingrained beliefs, and rebuilding your confidence from the ground up. However, it is through this process that you can begin to reclaim your sense of self and recognize that your worth is not diminished by someone else's actions or choices. The journey toward healing also involves shifting your perspective on being replaced. Instead of viewing it as a reflection of your inadequacy, try to see it as a reflection of the other person's needs and priorities. Their decision to move on or connect with someone else does not negate the value of the relationship you shared or the impact you had on their life. People change, circumstances evolve, and relationships adapt in ways that are often beyond our control. Accepting this reality can help you let go of the need to compare yourself to others or measure your worth against their actions. It allows you to focus on what you can control: your own growth, happiness, and ability to form meaningful connections with those who appreciate and value you for who you are. Ultimately, the feeling of being replaced is a painful but not insurmountable experience. It challenges you to confront your insecurities, reevaluate your relationships, and find strength in your own individuality. While it may leave scars, it also offers the chance to build resilience and a deeper understanding of yourself. Over time, you can learn to view the experience not as a defining moment of loss, but as a stepping stone toward greater self-awareness and personal growth. By embracing this perspective, you can move forward with a renewed sense of confidence and a clearer understanding of what you truly deserve in your relationships and in life. Number 6. Guilt for their actions. When guilt for their actions begins to take hold, it can be an overwhelming and consuming experience, as it forces a person to confront the consequences of their behavior and the impact it has had on others. Guilt is a uniquely human emotion, rooted in empathy and a deep understanding of right and wrong, which makes it all the more challenging to navigate. It emerges when someone recognizes that their actions, or lack of action, have caused harm, disappointment, or pain to another person. This realization often comes in waves, each one bringing with it a fresh layer of regret and self-reproach. The weight of guilt can feel like an anchor, dragging the person down into a cycle of rumination where they replay their mistakes over and over, searching for ways they could have acted differently. This relentless self-examination can become all-consuming, as the person becomes fixated on the idea that they could have prevented the harm if only they had made better choices. The experience of guilt is not just emotional, but also physical, manifesting as a heavy feeling in the chest, a knot in the stomach, or a sense of restlessness that makes it difficult to focus on anything else. It disrupts sleep, appetite, and overall well-being, creating a constant reminder of the wrongs that were committed. Guilt has a way of magnifying even the smallest of transgressions, turning them into insurmountable burdens that weigh on the conscience. This magnification often leads to feelings of shame, as the person begins to question not just their actions, but also their character. They may wonder if their behavior reflects something inherently flawed within themselves, which can spiral into a deeper sense of self-doubt and insecurity. This internal conflict makes it difficult to find peace, as the person becomes trapped in a cycle of guilt and self-judgment that feels impossible to escape. One of the most challenging aspects of guilt is the way it forces a person to confront their own humanity, their capacity for error, imperfection, and the unintended harm they may cause to others. This confrontation can be deeply uncomfortable, as it shatters the image they may have held of themselves as a good or moral person. It is this dissonance between their actions and their self-perception that makes guilt so powerful and difficult to resolve. To reconcile this dissonance, the person must engage in a process of introspection and self-reflection, examining not only what they did, but also why they did it. This process often uncovers deeper motivations, fears, or insecurities that may have influenced their behavior, adding another layer of complexity to the emotions they are experiencing. While this level of introspection can be painful, it is also a necessary step toward understanding and growth. Guilt also brings with it a sense of responsibility, as the person feels compelled to make amends for their actions and repair the damage they have caused. This responsibility can feel both empowering and overwhelming, as it offers a path toward redemption, but also requires courage and humility to confront those who have been hurt. Apologizing, acknowledging the harm caused, and seeking forgiveness are all part of this process, but they are not always easy to undertake. Fear of rejection, judgment, or further conflict may hold the person back, leaving them stuck in a state of unresolved guilt that continues to fester. Even when they do take steps to make amends, there is no guarantee that their efforts will be accepted or that the relationship will be restored. This uncertainty can make the process of seeking forgiveness feel daunting, as the person must grapple with the possibility that their guilt may never be fully alleviated. At the same time, guilt can also serve as a powerful motivator for change, prompting the person to reevaluate their values, priorities, and behaviors. It can act as a wake-up call, highlighting areas of their life where they have fallen short and encouraging them to strive for better. This transformation often requires a deep commitment to self-awareness and accountability, as the person must take ownership of their actions and their consequences. It involves not only making amends to others, but also forgiving themselves for their mistakes and learning to move forward with greater intentionality and care. This process of self-forgiveness is perhaps the most difficult aspect of overcoming guilt, as it requires the person to let go of the self-recrimination and judgment that have become so ingrained in their psyche. The journey towards self-forgiveness often involves reframing the way the person views their guilt, seeing it not as a sign of failure, but as an opportunity for growth. By acknowledging their mistakes and taking steps to learn from them, they can begin to rebuild their sense of self-worth and confidence. This shift in perspective allows them to recognize that their actions do not define them, and that they have the capacity to change and make better choices in the future. It also helps them to understand that guilt, while painful, is a natural and necessary part of the human experience, serving as a reminder of the values and principles that guide their behavior. Guilt also has a way of deepening empathy and compassion, as it provides a first-hand understanding of the pain and regret that come with causing harm to others. This heightened sense of empathy can strengthen relationships and foster a greater sense of connection, as the person becomes more attuned to the needs and feelings of those around them. It can also inspire acts of kindness and generosity, as they seek to counterbalance the harm they have caused with positive contributions to the lives of others. In this way, guilt can become a catalyst for personal growth and a deeper commitment to living a life of integrity and purpose. Despite its potential for growth and transformation, guilt is not an emotion that can be easily resolved or erased. It is a process that takes time, patience, and a willingness to confront the uncomfortable truths about oneself and one's actions. It requires a delicate balance of accountability and self-compassion, as the person must hold themselves responsible for their actions while also recognizing their own humanity and capacity for error. This balance is not always easy to achieve, but it is essential for moving forward in a way that feels authentic and true to one's values. Ultimately, guilt is a complex and multifaceted emotion that reflects the depth of our connections to others and our commitment to living a life of integrity. It is a painful but necessary part of the human experience, reminding us of the impact our actions have on those around us and challenging us to be better. By embracing the lessons that guilt has to offer and taking steps to make amends, we can transform it from a source of pain into a powerful force for growth, healing, and positive change. Number 7. Anxiety over the unknown. Anxiety over the unknown is a pervasive and deeply unsettling feeling that stems from the human tendency to fear what cannot be anticipated or controlled. This form of anxiety often arises when faced with situations where outcomes are uncertain, decisions are unclear, or the future feels unpredictable. It can manifest in a variety of ways, from a vague sense of unease to a more pronounced and debilitating worry that disrupts daily life. At its core, this anxiety reflects a fundamental desire for security and stability, which becomes challenged when the familiar is replaced with ambiguity. The mind, desperate for clarity, often fills the void of the unknown with worst-case scenarios, amplifying fears and creating a feedback loop of apprehension. This mental rehearsal of potential threats can make the unknown feel even more threatening than it might actually be, as the brain attempts to prepare for every possible outcome. This process is exhausting, as it demands constant mental energy and vigilance, leaving little room for peace or relaxation. The physiological effects of this anxiety are equally taxing. The body reacts to perceived uncertainty with a heightened state of alertness, triggering the fight-or-flight response even when no immediate danger is present. This response floods the system with stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, leading to physical symptoms such as a racing heart, shallow breathing, and muscle tension. Over time, these symptoms can become chronic, contributing to fatigue, headaches, and other stress-related ailments. This physical toll only reinforces the cycle of anxiety, as the body's state of tension mirrors the mind's inability to find resolution. It creates a sense of being trapped in a constant state of unease, unable to move forward or find relief. Anxiety over the unknown also has a profound impact on decision-making and problem-solving. The fear of making the wrong choice or facing an unfavorable outcome can lead to paralysis, where the individual becomes so overwhelmed by possibilities that they are unable to take any action at all. This indecision further compounds the anxiety, as the lack of progress leaves the person feeling stuck and powerless. Even when a decision is made, the lingering uncertainty about whether it was the right choice can lead to second-guessing and regret, keeping the cycle of worry alive. This struggle with decision-making highlights the human need for control and the discomfort that arises when that control is perceived to be lost. Relationships can also be affected by anxiety over the unknown, as the fear of uncertainty can make it difficult to trust others or fully engage in connections. The mind, preoccupied with what might go wrong, may interpret neutral or ambiguous situations as threats, leading to misunderstandings and conflicts. This hypervigilance can create barriers to intimacy and communication, as the anxious individual becomes more focused on protecting themselves from potential harm than on building meaningful relationships. Over time, this can lead to isolation, as the fear of the unknown makes it harder to take risks or invest in new connections. This isolation further fuels the anxiety, creating a self-perpetuating cycle that is difficult to break. One of the most challenging aspects of anxiety over the unknown is its tendency to feel all-encompassing. Because the unknown can apply to so many areas of life, relationships, career, health, and more, it can feel as though there is no escape from its grasp. This sense of pervasive uncertainty can lead to a state of hyper-awareness, where the individual becomes acutely attuned to every possible risk or change, no matter how small. While this vigilance is meant to provide a sense of control, it often has the opposite effect, making the person feel even more overwhelmed and out of control. The inability to predict or prepare for every eventuality reinforces the idea that the world is unpredictable and unsafe, which only heightens the anxiety. Despite its intensity, anxiety over the unknown is not inherently negative. It serves an evolutionary purpose by encouraging caution and preparation in the face of uncertainty. However, when it becomes chronic or disproportionate to the actual risks involved, it can become debilitating. Learning to manage this anxiety involves cultivating a sense of acceptance and resilience, recognizing that uncertainty is an inevitable part of life. This process is not about eliminating anxiety altogether, but about finding ways to coexist with it in a healthier and more balanced way. Practices such as mindfulness, meditation, and cognitive behavioral therapy can help individuals develop tools to manage their anxiety and reframe their relationship with the unknown. Reframing the unknown as a space of possibility rather than a source of fear can also be a powerful strategy for reducing anxiety. By shifting the focus from potential negative outcomes to the opportunities that uncertainty can bring, individuals can begin to see the unknown as a chance for growth and discovery. This perspective requires a willingness to embrace vulnerability and let go of the need for absolute control, which can be a difficult but ultimately rewarding process. It also involves building a sense of trust in oneself and one's ability to navigate challenges, even when the path forward is unclear. This self-trust provides a sense of stability and confidence that can counteract the fear of the unknown, making it feel less overwhelming. Support from others can also play a crucial role in managing anxiety over the unknown. Sharing fears and uncertainties with trusted friends, family members, or therapists can provide a sense of connection and reassurance, reminding the individual that they are not alone in their struggles. This sense of support can make the unknown feel less daunting, as it provides a network of resources and perspectives to draw upon. It also helps to normalize the experience of anxiety, reinforcing the idea that it is a common and natural response to life's uncertainties. Ultimately, anxiety over the unknown is a reflection of the human desire for security and predictability in an unpredictable world. While it can be a source of great distress, it also offers an opportunity for growth and self-discovery, challenging individuals to develop resilience, adaptability, and a deeper sense of trust in themselves and the world around them. By learning to navigate this anxiety with compassion and curiosity, it is possible to transform it from a source of fear into a catalyst for personal growth and transformation. Number 8. Realization of your worth. The realization of one's worth can be a profound and transformative experience. It often begins with a gradual shift in perspective, where a person starts to question their self-concept and how they view their value in the world. For many, this realization comes not from external validation, but from an internal awakening, an understanding that their worth is not tied solely to external circumstances, achievements, or the opinions of others. Instead, it emerges from a deeper awareness of their intrinsic value as a human being. The journey to this realization is often fueled by introspection, as individuals reflect on their strengths, qualities, and contributions. It may start with the recognition that their worth is not determined by societal standards, career success, or the approval of others, but by their unique essence, beliefs, and character. As this realization takes hold, There is often a shift from seeking validation externally to finding it within. It becomes less about measuring one's value by comparing themselves to others or by striving to meet external expectations. Instead, self-worth begins to be defined by the way a person shows up in the world, their integrity, their resilience, and their capacity for growth. This self-acknowledgement is not always easy. It often requires letting go of limiting beliefs and releasing the need to conform to societal or cultural ideals. There may be moments of discomfort as old patterns of self-doubt and comparison surface. However, with self-compassion and persistence, these patterns can be replaced with a more empowering understanding of who they are. The realization of one's worth often involves recognizing that mistakes, failures, and setbacks do not diminish a person's value, but are instead integral parts of their journey. It's a deep understanding that worth isn't something to be earned, but something to be embraced. This realization allows individuals to let go of perfectionism, the fear of judgment, and the constant pursuit of external approval. It empowers them to view themselves through a lens of acceptance and self-love, acknowledging both their strengths and their imperfections. This shift in perspective fosters greater self-confidence and resilience as individuals become more willing to take risks, make mistakes, and grow from them. In addition to self-acceptance, the realization of one's worth often brings an increased awareness of the value they bring to the lives of others. It becomes less about what they can achieve for themselves and more about how they contribute to the well-being of those around them. This sense of purpose and interconnectedness can deepen relationships and create a greater sense of belonging. As they come to understand their worth, they often find themselves more capable of offering empathy, compassion, and support to others. This recognition of their impact in the lives of others reinforces their sense of value and purpose, creating a positive feedback loop of growth and fulfillment. Realizing one's worth is not a destination, but an ongoing process of self-discovery and growth. It requires continuous reflection and a willingness to embrace one's unique journey. Along the way, there may be moments of doubt and uncertainty, but these are part of the process of coming to know and accept oneself fully. It's a journey of embracing vulnerability, accepting one's humanity, and recognizing that worthiness is not something reserved for a select few, but a fundamental aspect of the human experience. Ultimately, the realization of one's worth is about coming to terms with the fact that they are valuable simply by existing. It's about recognizing that their worth is not conditional on external circumstances, but inherent in who they are as individuals. This understanding provides a foundation for greater self-acceptance, self-compassion, and the confidence to live authentically and purposefully. It allows individuals to move through life with a sense of peace, knowing that their worth is steadfast, unshakable, and intrinsic to their being. Number 9. Obsession with your silence. The obsession with your silence can be an overwhelming and perplexing experience for others. Silence, often perceived as a form of withdrawal or absence, can evoke deep curiosity and anxiety in those who are used to hearing your voice or presence. When someone becomes accustomed to your energy, your silence can feel like a void. A space that once held assurance, conversation, or connection now feels empty and uncertain. For those who are used to engaging with you, your silence disrupts their expectations, creating a gap that they struggle to fill. This absence often leads to a sense of unease as they are left grappling with questions. Why aren't they speaking? Are they okay? What's going on inside their mind? These unanswered questions can intensify feelings of insecurity and restlessness. When someone becomes fixated on your silence, they often begin to obsess over what it might mean. Their minds may fill the silence with all sorts of interpretations, especially when there are no clear answers. In their search for meaning, they might speculate about what has caused the silence, whether it's intentional or accidental, whether you are hurt, angry, or simply disinterested. This obsession can become all-consuming as they try to decipher whether your silence is a reflection of rejection, apathy, or something deeper. The lack of communication becomes a source of confusion, and for many, confusion often leads to anxiety. They are drawn to the silence, unable to let go of the idea that it holds some kind of significance. The fear of being forgotten or ignored can drive people to obsess over your silence even further. In a world where connection is often validated by conversations, presence, and attention, silence can feel like a threat to the bonds they have with you. They may become fixated on understanding why you're choosing silence, fearing that their relationship with you is slipping away. In the absence of communication, they might begin to question their worth, wondering if they've done something wrong, if they are being forgotten, or if they are no longer important to you. This fear of losing connection amplifies their focus on your silence, as they cling to the need for answers that may not be forthcoming. The obsession with your silence can also stem from a deeper longing for certainty and control. People often seek to understand, categorize, and predict behavior in order to feel secure in their relationships. When faced with silence, they are stripped of this control, leaving them in a state of uncertainty. They become desperate to restore order, to make sense of what is happening, even if the reality is far from clear. In their quest for clarity, they may overanalyze your silence, replaying interactions and conversations, trying to pinpoint any clues or signs that could provide answers. However, in the absence of information, their minds tend to fill the void with worst-case scenarios, compounding their obsession with silence. Silence, paradoxically, often generates more noise in the minds of those who are obsessed with it. The longer the silence persists, the more their thoughts become consumed by it. They may create stories, narratives, and scenarios to explain your silence, often leading to a distorted view of reality. They might assume the worst, imagining scenarios where you've moved on, lost interest, or even become indifferent. These assumptions, though often far from the truth, become reinforced by their fixation on the silence itself. Their minds become trapped in a cycle of seeking meaning, only to find it elusive, which further deepens their fixation on the silence. What makes this obsession even more powerful is the fact that silence often carries an emotional weight that words sometimes cannot. In many ways, silence speaks louder than words. It conveys a message of withdrawal, distance, or contemplation that words might not fully capture. For those who are used to the rhythm of conversation, silence feels deafening. It leaves them feeling unheard, unseen, and uncertain, all of which can amplify their sense of emotional disconnection. Their obsession with the silence becomes an attempt to bridge the gap, to fill the void with meaning and understanding, even if those explanations are rooted in fear or assumption. However, the irony lies in the fact that the obsession itself often keeps them trapped in their own mind. They remain fixated on your silence, unable to move past it, which prevents them from fully addressing or understanding the underlying causes. This self-imposed cycle of seeking answers through the silence often leads to more confusion, frustration, and doubt. In many cases, their obsession only pushes them further into a space of detachment, making it even harder for them to reach out or break free from the grip of their own anxieties. Ultimately, the obsession with your silence highlights their internal struggle to find certainty and connection in a world that feels increasingly uncertain. It reveals their desire to hold on to control, to cling to the familiar, and to seek meaning in the absence of clear communication. However, this fixation on silence can also serve as a mirror, reminding both them and you of the complexity of human connection and the profound impact silence can have on our sense of self and others. Number 10. Frustration and anger. Frustration and anger are powerful emotions that can arise from a wide range of experiences. They often stem from a sense of unmet expectations, feeling powerless, or being unable to control a situation. When things don't go as planned, or when obstacles stand in the way of our goals, frustration begins to build. This frustration can quickly escalate into anger when that sense of control is further diminished, and when our efforts seem futile or ignored. Anger is often the result of prolonged frustration, when the mind becomes overwhelmed by feelings of helplessness and injustice. It's a natural response to perceived unfairness, perceived disrespect, or situations where we feel we've been treated unjustly. In many cases, frustration is a precursor to anger, as we become increasingly irritated by the recurring presence of something that feels out of our grasp. The physical manifestations of frustration and anger are often intense. Blood pressure rises, muscles tense, and a surge of adrenaline floods the system, preparing the body for action. This heightened state of arousal, if not addressed, can become overwhelming, leading to emotional outbursts, aggression, or even internalized bitterness. Frustration often arises when we feel that our efforts are going unnoticed or that we are being ignored. When we put time, energy, and commitment into something only to see minimal or no results, the sense of failure and powerlessness grows. Anger amplifies this frustration, turning it into something more volatile as we begin to see ourselves as victims of circumstances beyond our control. One of the most frustrating aspects of anger is its unpredictability. It can strike without warning, even in situations where we thought we had managed our emotions. Sometimes the smallest triggers, things that seem insignificant, can ignite a wave of anger. These triggers can be external, such as unmet promises, careless behavior from others, or inefficiencies in systems we rely on. But they can also be internal, tied to our own insecurities, doubts, or unmet personal expectations. The inability to manage these triggers effectively often leads to anger becoming more frequent and more intense. Once anger sets in, it can become difficult to maintain rational thought, as the emotional charge takes precedence. In these moments, frustration no longer remains subdued. It bursts forth, often leaving chaos in its wake. The process of frustration and anger can also become cyclical. When anger arises, it often reinforces itself, making it difficult to step back and reflect objectively. The very act of being angry tends to block rational thinking, as the brain becomes fixated on the source of the frustration. This fixation, in turn, fuels more anger, creating a loop that becomes harder to escape. The longer this cycle persists, the more entrenched feelings of resentment, bitterness, and disillusionment become. Over time, anger can transform from a temporary response into a more chronic state, eroding relationships, self-esteem, and overall peace of mind. In this way, frustration and anger can be self-perpetuating, creating barriers to both personal growth and connection with others. Frustration and anger also have a way of isolating individuals. When someone feels trapped by these emotions, they often pull away from others, believing that their problems are too burdensome to share. This isolation can deepen feelings of loneliness and exacerbate the cycle of frustration and anger. In many cases, those experiencing these emotions struggle to communicate their needs, either because they believe others won't understand or because they fear judgment or dismissal. As a result, the frustration grows in silence, often leading to more intense feelings of anger. The inability to express these emotions or to feel heard and understood only intensifies the isolation and disconnection from others. However, While frustration and anger are natural responses to certain situations, they are not insurmountable. Recognizing the patterns that fuel these emotions is the first step toward breaking free from their grip. Mindfulness practices, deep breathing exercises, and techniques like cognitive behavioral therapy can help individuals gain greater awareness of their triggers and learn healthier ways to cope. Instead of reacting impulsively, they can learn to pause, reflect, and respond in a way that is more thoughtful and constructive. By understanding that anger often stems from unmet needs or unfulfilled expectations, people can begin to identify the root causes and work toward solutions rather than remaining trapped in the emotional storm. Ultimately, frustration and anger are part of the human experience, but they do not have to define us. With self-awareness, patience, and intentional effort, individuals can begin to manage these emotions in a way that promotes growth and resilience. Recognizing that frustration and anger often serve as signals, reminders of where we may need to make adjustments or seek new paths, can help us navigate life's challenges with greater clarity and peace. Number 11. A desire to reach out. A deep desire to reach out often emerges during moments of isolation, distance, or confusion. It's a longing that surfaces when someone feels disconnected from those they care about, whether physically, emotionally, or mentally. This desire can arise from a recognition that something is missing: the connection, the conversations, the presence of another person who once brought meaning and support. It's a silent yearning for the comfort of familiar voices, the warmth of shared experiences, and the sense of belonging that was once taken for granted. When this longing appears, it often feels like an internal pull, a quiet whisper that reminds a person of what once was. Reaching out may seem daunting at first, especially when there are doubts about whether the other person feels the same. The fear of rejection or indifference can discourage this desire from being acted upon, leaving the yearning trapped in the mind. Yet, despite these fears, the need to reconnect can become too strong to ignore. It's not always about the need for answers or even the expectation of a particular outcome. It's about the acknowledgement that the absence of connection feels uncomfortable, even painful. The heart longs to bridge the distance, to regain what once felt effortless and natural. This desire to reach out can be driven by a desire for clarity, closure, or even an attempt to restore balance. Sometimes, when someone disappears or drifts away, it leaves a gap that grows heavier over time. The longer the silence persists, the more it intensifies the longing to understand what went wrong, to find reassurance, and to feel connected again. The mind begins to question: did I matter to them? Did I do something wrong? Are they thinking of me too? These questions can become a constant echo, fueling the desire to reach out and seek answers. Reaching out often signifies an internal shift, an acknowledgement of the importance of connection and the desire to reclaim what feels lost. It's about recognizing that relationships are built on communication and presence, and when that foundation is disrupted, a sense of vulnerability can take hold. This vulnerability can prompt a person to seek reconnection, not out of desperation, but out of a deep need to restore what was once intact. The desire to reach out is often driven by a belief that the connection was valuable and worth preserving. For some, reaching out is an act of self-awareness, recognizing that life becomes richer and more meaningful through the bonds we form with others. In moments of solitude, the realization that one's well-being is intertwined with the presence of others becomes clearer. The desire to reconnect isn't just about the individual, but about rediscovering that sense of belonging and shared humanity. It's a reminder that no one exists in isolation, and the act of reaching out is a recognition of our shared need for connection. However, reaching out requires courage. especially when the outcome is uncertain. It requires vulnerability, the willingness to face the possibility of rejection or uncertainty. Yet, the desire to reach out often outweighs these fears. There's a deep belief that reconnecting holds the potential for healing, understanding, and growth. Even if the connection can't be fully restored, reaching out often serves as a form of closure, a way to express what was once left unsaid. Ultimately, the desire to reach out is a testament to the importance of human connection and the longing for meaning in our relationships. It reminds us that while distance may grow between people, the desire to bridge that gap is a natural part of our shared journey.